Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. Putting a big promise into action.
Will enable us to fast-track our old growth protection work.
BC has signed a historic $1 billion nature conservation agreement to protect at-risk ecosystems. Plus, supporters march in solidarity.
We are building a movement to fight the right and to say the drug war has got to end.
Denouncing the recent arrests of Vancouver's safe drug supply advocates. And the family of a 9-year-old who died after suffering an asthma attack made worse by wildfire smoke speaks out.
He was such an amazing kid and so small and so mighty, and even after his death, he's still able to be that way.
Their goal to raise awareness of the hidden dangers of wildfires.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Janella Hamilton. Dan is away tonight. A controversial RCMP unit in BC is getting hundreds of complaints, and the RCMP is rejecting a majority of them. The Community Industry Response Group was created to police resource protests in the province, and it gained notoriety for controversial standoffs. The Fifth Estate's Stephen D'Souza reports.
Coming down! No, you're not!
Protesters say it's like a paramilitary force. The RCMP's Community Industry Response Group has been at the heart of some of the most intense protests in recent Canadian history. Created in 2017, it's been on the front lines of anti-pipeline and anti-logging protests in BC. The unit has been accused of improper arrest and use of force and violating protesters' civil rights. Since 2019, there have been 560 complaints against the unit after protests in Wet'suwet'en and Fairy Creek. The complaints go to an independent body, the Civilian Review and Complaints Commission, the CRCC. But the RCMP gets first crack at reviewing the allegations.
I would say 99% of the complaints go over to the RCMP for them to investigate. So whether they choose to informally resolve it or investigate it is left up to the RCMP.
A new analysis by the Fifth Estate shows what's happened to some of those complaints. Currently, the RCMP has investigated 181 allegations filed from Fairy Creek, the majority claiming improper attitude, improper use of force, and neglect of duty. So far, the RCMP has rejected 86% of the allegations. Has there been any breaches found?
Yes, so there have been public complaints that have been upheld. Some members have acted out verbally in an unprofessional manner. They've been dealt with. Absolutely they have.
Meanwhile, the CRCC is conducting a systemic review of CURG. It won't look at complaints, but things like training and policies and procedures.
I'm not optimistic that the CRCC is going to be able to adequately investigate the RCMP's CURG division.
I don't think that they have any real teeth to do anything. I think that there needs to be political will to actually make some drastic changes.
While the RCMP continues investigating complaints and awaits the review from the independent watchdog, the BC government has already committed to funding CURG for the next 3 years. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, Toronto.
Who's Police airs tonight on the Fifth Estate at 9 p.m. on CBC TV and CBC Gem. BC, Ottawa, and First Nations leaders have announced a landmark conservation partnership. The agreement comes with $1 billion in funding to protect at-risk ecosystems. As John Hernandez reports, the announcement was applauded by conservationists who say it's now time to put the big promise into action.
I believe it's a special moment in time.
At sunrise, an historic pledge to protect a significant swath of BC wilderness.
We have a sacred duty to do our utmost to protect the land, to nurture the land.
BC, Ottawa, and First Nations leaders coming together for a tripartite agreement worth $1 billion. $500 million from both levels of government to protect 30% of BC's land and waters by 2030.
It will enable us to fast track our old growth protection work. It will enable us to protect habitat for species that are at risk.
The agreement consists largely of previously announced funding, including dollars for watershed security and land restoration. That money will now be made accessible to Indigenous-led conservation efforts.
Why are we here? You know, we see Lytton burning down. We've seen what happened in the Shuswap and the Okanagan. We've seen Samat Hatsa, which is Sumas Lake, return to the Fraser Valley and the Stalo lands.
But I think fundamentally, we need to be a part of the decision-making process.
It is substantial. It's bigger than anything else that's ever come along.
The agreement received widespread praise by BC conservationists, particularly for what it might mean for vulnerable old-growth stands.
There is a subset of the fund specifically designed to protect the most at-risk old growth in the coastal and inland temperate rainforests.
Still, critics note the funding can only go so far without detailing exactly which areas will be protected, which they say is what's needed next.
If you don't have ecosystem-based targets to correctly aim protection, then what you get is basically, it's like sending in the fire brigade to hose down all the houses that aren't burning while largely ignoring the houses on fire.
An ambitious plan, and if it all comes to fruition, BC will double the area of protected lands and waters in just 7 years. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
This week, we've brought you 2 shocking stories involving Air Canada passengers who use wheelchairs. The airline has admitted it violated Canadian disability regulations. And now, as Renee Filippone reports, the Transportation Minister has summoned Air Canada officials to Ottawa to talk about those incidents.
This video shows Air Canada staff struggling to get Ryan LeChance off a flight at Vancouver Airport. Eventually, he is dropped in the aisle. LeChance has cerebral palsy and uses a motorized wheelchair. He typically uses a lift to get out of the seat, but says the crew refused to get it. He says the experience was painful and left him with bruises.
The equipment's available, the processes are available to teach their staff on how to do this all correctly, so just take the time and do it.
LeChance told CBC News his story after hearing about Rodney Hodgins. Also in a wheelchair, he needs help to get off the plane, but there wasn't any, and he had to crawl down the aisle.
I felt humiliated, but I was also angry.
Air Canada has apologized and offered Hodgins $2,000 in credit.
Air Canada could offer me $1 million, but it doesn't make a difference. Because if I took that money and nothing happened, then who wins? Nobody.
We are continuously hearing stories like Rodney's and many others that go unreported about the indecent and inhumane moments of trauma.
Advocate Mayan Zinn is calling for laws to protect people with disabilities.
The entire way that people with disabilities are treated in air travel is like we're an inconvenience.
And pandemic staff shortages have made the situation worse.
And it's been difficult for carriers to get back to the number of people that they need in such a short time, while also ensuring that those staff people are properly trained.
One solution is making it possible to take the wheelchairs onto the planes. This technology was unveiled earlier this year, but is not in place yet.
And we eliminate the potential for injury to the passenger and damage to the wheelchair.
In a statement to CBC News, Canada's Transportation Minister Pablo Rodriguez says all Canadians must be treated with dignity and respect, and says he has summoned Air Canada executives to Ottawa to meet. For its part, the airline says it has undertaken reviews into these recent incidents to make changes to avoid events like this happening in the future. Renee Filippone, CBC News, Vancouver.
Hundreds of people marched through the streets of the downtown east side earlier this afternoon. The crowd is denouncing the recent arrests of the founders of the Drug User Liberation Front. Yasmin Gandam has more on why protesters are calling this a crackdown.
People holding signs and marching down Hastings Street in downtown Vancouver demanding safe supply. Carmen Best was amongst the gathering.
Free the people who've been arrested, the founders of Dolph, and that they can go back to what they were doing. It's just that we need it. It's like if people don't have access, then they're just going to die in the streets.
This comes just over a week after Vancouver police officers raided the Drug User Liberation Front's offices. The raids were conducted after Dolph was questioned about how it had been paying to buy and test drugs for its members as part of its Compassion Club program. According to organizers, Dolph purchased its drugs off the dark web, then sent them to labs at the University of British Columbia and University of Victoria for purity testing. The drugs were then sold at cost to the club's 42 members. The two people arrested were Eris Nix and Jeremy Calicum, who co-founded Dolph. Speakers gathered in Victory Square to condemn the arrests.
Today, we are building a movement to fight the right and to say the drug war has got to end.
BC United earlier this week called for both a criminal investigation and breach of ethics investigation at both the BC Centre on Substance Abuse and UVic. But for some at the rally today, the issue is close to home, and they say it's time for safe supply despite the legal barriers.
It's not drugs that are killing people, it's the poison street drugs that are killing people, and that if people have a safe supply, they live.
More streets are free! The demonstration comes days after an expert panel led by BC's chief coroner recommended the province massively expand its safe supply program, arguing offering clean drugs without a prescription would be the safest way to cut down on toxic drug deaths. Vancouver police have said people who violate the criminal code can face enforcement and criminal charges. Yasmin Gandam, CBC News, Vancouver.
An impromptu rally in support of Palestinians shut down a major intersection in Vancouver today.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
A group of people blocked Venables Street and Clark Drive this morning. Organizers say the rally was planned by Jewish groups that are not supportive of Israel's violence in Gaza. Prominent scholar and former judge Mary-Ellen Turpel-Lafon has been dropped from the Order of Canada in response to her own request. Turpel-Lafon was plunged into controversy last October after an investigation by CBC News raised questions about her claims to Indigenous ancestry. She says she returned the Order of Canada to avoid harassment. This termination is the latest in the series of similar cancellations, many of them prompted by Turpel-Lafon herself. We've done plenty of stories about the dangers of wildfire smoke, but no family knows the risk and tragic consequences more than the Vi family of 100 Mile House. Back in July, a 9-year-old Carter Vi died after suffering an asthma attack made worse by the smoky conditions. Now they're telling their story and trying to raise awareness of the hidden dangers of wildfires. Sarah Penton, host of Radio West, spoke to Carter's parents earlier this week.
I know you guys got a million things going on, and I just want to say thank you very much, because putting yourself out there publicly the way you have has been pretty brave. So thank you guys for doing what you're doing.
Last week, Carter was playing outside in the morning and seemed fine. His parents say the wildfire smoke worsened as the day went on. By dinner time, he was coughing uncontrollably. Carter died at 7:20 that night.
BC's coroner confirms wildfire smoke was a factor in Carter's death. This case has now sparked a provincial safety bulletin warning of the dangers of wildfire smoke.
I want to know how you guys are doing. It's been 3.5 months since Carter passed away. How have you been?
It's been tough. We just kind of go day by day, one foot in front of the other, and try to live our best lives for him and for our other 2 kids and keep it all together and
just go through the motions. That's the best as you can do.
How old are your other 2 kids?
Cadence is 14 and Daxton's 11. Carter was kind of the glue, I guess. Being the baby brother, without him there, they've kind of grown a lot stronger together, because you don't have that little brother to poke and prod, and at the same time they don't have that one-on-one time with him, so they've taken to each other a lot more, which is nice to see.
How have you guys been remembering Carter?
It doesn't feel real. Carter was so into music and dance. We've created a playlist on Spotify, and that's going continuously in my truck day in, day out.
We talk about him every single day. I write about him every day. We look at pictures of him every single day and tell stories about him. And even last night when we were walking through downtown Vancouver, the cool cars and the sounds and all the people and all the buildings and stuff, the lights, he would have thought it was the coolest thing. And to be right close to where like the big soccer games happen and that kind of stuff, he would have really loved it.
I understand he was a big soccer fan, huh? And you guys went back and coached his team over the summer.
Yeah, he loved soccer. We weren't sure we were going to after he passed, but we decided that he would have wanted us to go back, and our team was absolutely incredible. So happy to have us, and even every time they see us in town or at school, they all run up and give us both big hugs, and we won our final game, and they did an amazing tribute, and they bought us all jerseys that they had Carter's name put on the back and his number, and the entire team had them on. They all took off their regular soccer jerseys to show us these special Carter jerseys, and they all played in Carter's name and his number that day.
When you look back now after you've had some time to have things register, how do you remember that time and those circumstances?
You know, the day that he passed, it wasn't even that bad of a day. The smoke had, for the most part, cleared out. It's not uncommon to have to take Carter in once a month or once every 2 months to the hospital to get topped up on oxygen levels, right? I carried him out to the truck to have Amber take him to the hospital. I didn't really think it was too serious at that time. Kind of caught me off guard. I just didn't see this one coming.
We checked the air quality monitoring system that we had available to us. There was no smoke, you couldn't smell smoke, so we figured it was an okay day to take the kids. Even up until half an hour before he started having an asthma attack, if someone had asked me, how's Carter? I would have said he's great. He's had a great day, we had fun, he didn't have to use his puffer when we were at the park, and being a family that was so on top of Carter's asthma, and even himself being so on top of it, I don't think he saw it coming either. Our information in 100 Mile either comes from Williams Lake or Kamloops, both places which are very far from 100 Mile, and the weather difference between even different parts of 100 Mile can be so different, never mind between Williams Lake and 100 Mile. It's like a whole different weather system. So it wasn't accurate. If we had air quality monitoring throughout our town, it would have told us that there was something in the air that wasn't safe, and we wouldn't have gone outside at all that day.
And that is why we're talking, why you've made the trip to Vancouver, because the BC Lung Association has actually launched a project in Carter's name. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
So the goal is to start in 100 Mile, and we're raising money to bring 100 air quality monitoring systems and put them throughout 100 Mile House. We're going to teach people how to make personal air purifying systems, how to use the air quality monitoring systems properly, and what the information actually means. And then from our town, it's going to go to other towns throughout BC. And I have also heard that other provinces have asked to continue the Carter's project farther away from BC. We're super proud that we can do this in his name.
But what stood out to me the most was the family themselves. Almost immediately, they stood up and said, we want to do something about this. We want to ensure that other British Columbians get the help that they need so this doesn't happen for them.
Our goal with Carter's project is to help save lives so that other families don't have to go through what we're going through. Carter's project will change lives. We will make sure of it. He was such an amazing kid and so small and so mighty, and even after his death, he's still able to be that way.
I think Carter would have moved mountains regardless, and we're just super proud to help him move mountains, even though he's not here.
Carter's project raised about $70,000 last night at a gala here in Vancouver. But if you're looking to contribute to the fund, there are still a need for donations. Go to the BC Lung Foundation's website to find out how you can help. Darius Madavi joins us now with our first look at the weather. Darius, what are we looking at when it comes to the weekend weather forecast?
Definitely wetter than we have been, and also getting a bit cooler, very much snowy in the north, which is why we have a snowfall warning actually in place for parts of the Peace. We're expecting up to 15 to 20 centimeters of snow up there as the frontal system that brings us rain and heavy winds, hence the wind warning here, moves up into the north over the next through the weekend, actually. We also have a couple air quality warnings still in place, but the one that was in the Cranbrook area has come down. But Golden and the Boundary region still looking like the air quality isn't the best, just a bit of a haze in the air. Now, if we look earlier today, we did see quite a bit of moisture start to stream over the island. This is at around 2 to 3 p.m. that we started to see that system roll through, which is really why I wanted to take a look on the radar, because that's just the beginnings of that system. The real bulk of it starts to come in overnight tonight. So we start to see, as we get into later tomorrow morning, we get quite a bit of precipitation on the island. And then as we look at the 24 hours after that, you can see that system make its way up to the north and really start to fill in that snow. So I made this run from 2 p.m. today into 2 p.m. Sunday so that we could take a look at just how much rain will fall. And you can see most of the most significant amounts are in the central interior. Tonight, expect those warmer highs on the coast and all that rain starting throughout the province, but the only certainty is really right on the coast. And then you can expect that cloud to continue right through the weekend for most of the province, but especially the coast. But yeah, just keep in mind those really warm lows. And the last thing we should mention is it is daylight savings this weekend. Sunday night at 2 p.m. is when you roll the clocks back an hour, so probably just do it before you go to sleep. And then we can also make sure that you test your smoke and carbon monoxide alarms. This is when it's a good time to do it, just so that you can have that sort of regularity of those 6 months to check your smoke alarms. And you get that extra hour of sleep, which isn't too bad. But fun fact Friday, you can know that farmers are often blamed, they're often tied to daylight savings time, but that's really a myth. Farmers were actually very much against daylight savings time when it was first being implemented back in the 1900s.
Thanks so much. BC Place is gearing up to welcome a sea of orange jerseys tomorrow as the BC Lions prepare to face off against the Calgary Stampeders in the CFL Western semi-final game. The Lions were victorious over the Calgary football team in the 2022 Western semi-final, and fans who are hoping for the same outcome will flock to BC Place tomorrow for the 3:30 kickoff. Our Joel Ballard spoke to CFL Commissioner Randy Ambrosie about the Lions' season so far.
We are here in Vancouver, of course, so I got to ask you about the BC Lions. They had a strong run last year. They've been having a strong season this year. What have you enjoyed personally watching the BC Lions on and off the pitch this year?
Well, you know, BC to me is it's what we are. It's fun, fast, and entertaining. You know, they played a game here not that long ago. They were down by a lot of points late in the game, and then they just hit the gas pedal, and they scored a lot in a very short period of time. I think this team is built. It is fun. It is a fast roster. Certainly really entertaining football. I think it's going to be a great game tomorrow. And Calgary started to come on late in the season. I think it's going to make for a really good football game.
Yeah, we need our revenge.
Right.
So right now the CFL is, of course, a 9-league team, but I have heard rumors that we might be looking at expansions. People have been talking about Halifax as a possible city. Can you let us know what that's looking like, if there are any plans for that right now?
Well, we're not just looking at expansion. Expansion is a plan for our future. It's a mandate that I have from our Board of Governors to pursue. Look, we've been in a fascinating conversation around what we might be able to do, but it doesn't begin and end there. It's also cities like Quebec City, which could be a phenomenal place for the CFL. It's a city just slightly smaller than Winnipeg. Population in Quebec City is bigger than the combined population of Saskatoon and Regina, one of our best football markets. There's so many reasons to be excited about expansion for us. It's not just an aspiration, it's part of our plan. Now we just got to make it happen.
We've heard from the mayor of the city of Vancouver. He's got a little friendly wager going on with the mayor in Calgary. The loser of today's matchup, or tomorrow's matchup, has to sport the winning team's jersey. So they've got their bets placed. I'm wondering, if you're a betting man, who you think's going to take it? And remember, these are your Vancouver fans.
Okay, well, here's the thing in the commissioner's handbook is that you, first two things, one is you never pick a side, and number two is you never bet on anyone. Look, what I'm betting on is what I bet on every CFL week, every CFL game. I'm betting on it being a really great game. I'm betting on the fact that it's going to be fun, fast, and entertaining. I'm betting on a lot of the fans, coming here excited and leaving here excited. And whoever wins is going to head to Winnipeg and face a formidable challenge there. But I'm just thrilled to be here. This is a beautiful place. It's a beautiful city. It's a beautiful province. And as the commissioner of the CFL, I want to say I'm honored to be part of what's going to take place this weekend.
This weekend is double stacked with sporting events. On Sunday, the Vancouver Whitecaps will host its first MLS Cup playoffs match since 2017. They will face off against the Los Angeles FC in an elimination game that has drawn enough attention to open the upper bowl of BC Place. Coming up, how the BCPCA is helping people fleeing domestic violence. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. Students at a Prince Edward Island school were given a challenge, updating school signs to make them more accessible for visually impaired students. Take a look at how their volunteerism paid off.
Kind of walking around the school, seeing the end result. It's definitely cool seeing your finished product up there. Definitely, it's an accomplishment.
The signs in the school weren't the greatest because they were small. Right, and it was difficult for visually impaired people to read them, which is terrible, because how are they going to get around?
Multiple students with visual impairments, current and future, will be coming through this building. So it's really important to make sure that the environment is set up for everybody that comes through here.
We were supposed to make signs that were readable for anyone.
We were kind of set free to kind of spout out ideas and what we were going to do. It's definitely nice that they trust you enough and think you're good enough, I guess, to fix a problem.
When you look around and when you walk through the building, none of the kids, none of the staff refer to the rooms by number, they refer to it by the teacher's name. So that was brought up as a bit of a challenge, and these kids and the teacher, Ryan Casey, thought, you know what? I'll bet you we could do something about that.
Our way of fixing this was by making the signs movable. So instead of just having a static sign, they're like using parts, in 3 parts, that we can change. The class number will usually stay the same, but the teacher's name may not. So we can take out the name and put in a new name or swap the name if the teacher moves.
And they did some research as well to find out what kinds of things needed to be put in place in order for it to work. So they relied heavily on accepted standards there, using the ADA, the Americans with Disability Act, as a basis, and started from there, and then went above and beyond to make sure that it was as accessible as it could possibly be for all the kids here.
We needed like a bigger sign for everybody, so that you could see the room number and their name, and in Braille, so you could feel it out and know what class you're going to.
We put in a couple designs and ideas for how we're going to lock in the parts, and eventually we settled on one design that we decided to implement.
Oh, it's a totally elegant solution. What they've produced, what they've come up with is something that, in my view, is better than anything that I've seen that's commercially available.
It's definitely nice. Like, they can easily get around the school, and it's, I don't know, I feel like it would be a better experience at school, not kind of wandering around being like, where am I? So it's nice to see that everybody can get to their class easily.
The BCPCA says it urgently needs volunteers for its pilot project that supports people fleeing domestic violence. The organization provides long-term fostering for people's animals while they try to find a safer situation. Our Dan Burrett spoke with the head of the program to learn more about how it works.
We started because we noticed there's a gap between violence against people and violence against animals. And so we wanted to try and bridge that gap, partner with service providers, and be able to support people who are fleeing violence, keep their pets safe so they can find safety.
Is this because you've found that sometimes people stay in violent situations because of their animals?
There's something called the violence link, and that is the proven link between domestic violence, elder abuse, child maltreatment, and animal abuse. So when one is present in a home, often there's others as well. So trying to work together with people who are supporting human violence survivors and also ending that animal abuse and that cycle of harm.
So if someone is fleeing a violent situation and they have an animal and they come to you, how does it work? What do they do?
Yeah, so they can call, we have a provincial animal helpline, they can call the helpline. Right now, the project is only in the Lower Mainland, but they can call the helpline if they tell us they're fleeing interpersonal violence. That's all we need. They're eligible for the program, and then we can start intaking them. We get information about their pet, and then we send that out to our foster pool. Initially for the program last year, we were only taking clients who were referred from the local police department. We eliminated that barrier, so now anybody can self-refer, and that has helped us increase our numbers. So since last year, we've been able to quadruple the amount of people and pets we've been able to help, which has been really exciting.
Do you find with these programs, are you getting more, what sort of animals do you see? Is it just dogs and cats? What sort of animals come in?
We get all kinds of animals. So the program is open to dogs, cats, rabbits, and small animals. Small animals are, rats, gerbils, hamsters. I had a call for youth who had some rats, and so we were able to support the rats. I also had a call for some fancy pigeons, a cage full of fancy pigeons, so we've had bird calls. We know that there's lots of animals out there, and just making sure that we have specialized foster homes is so important. So the more folks we can get on board as volunteers, the more people and pets we can help. Volunteers are everything for this program. It is the Safe Keepers program. We've named it that because our Safe Keeper fosters are the foundation of this program, and they are offering life-changing support. So we have some special training for them just to really get a good idea of how to support animals who may have been in a home where violence was present. So they do that training, and then they welcome these animals in and just love them, really. That's all we ask them to do, is just love these pets and keep them safe for their owners so they can find a new beginning. And once they're ready, we return the pets back to the owners.
Pandemic fallout is still hitting Canadian restaurants hard, with many businesses in danger of going under. After the break, we'll find out what's contributing to the industry's bleak future.
PFL's big game is being played this weekend. Vancouver, home of the BC Lions, and host to the team from Baltimore, the first American one ever to play in the Grey Cup. It's an historic event, but as Ian Hannamansing found around town today, it's hard to see the enthusiasm.
On the streets of Vancouver today, there wasn't much to show the big game is just 2 days away. These football fans from Calgary certainly stood out, though. Some of them have traveled to the last 5 Grey Cup games and say the pre-game mood in Vancouver seems a little muted.
The last couple of Cups, Winnipeg and Calgary were, I think, a lot more festive than this one.
Even in the elevator today, they were saying, oh, you guys are from Calgary, yeah. Is there a big game on tonight or something? It's like, no, Sunday is like a Grey Cup, so. In the bigger centers, it's not quite as popular.
At this souvenir store on busy Robson Street, Grey Cup shirts are not selling very well.
The Grey Cup is, I don't know why this seems so slow.
If there's one part of Grey Cup that's been an unqualified success so far, it's been ticket sales for the game. As of this afternoon, the best seat available in the house is way up here in level 2, and these seats would cost you $95 each. At least a few hundred of the more than 50,000 people at BC Place will be cheering for Baltimore.
Grey Cup going back to the US of A.
A plane load of American fans arrived in Vancouver at 2:30 this morning. They may have been raised on 4-down American football, but now they're saying what Canadian fans have said for years about the CFL.
It's a great game, more exciting. You cannot take your eyes off the field. I went to the bathroom one night and missed 10 points.
But what some Canadians are finding a little less exciting is the possibility of the Cup going to the U.S.
Instead of east-west battle, now we're looking at a north-south border battle, and we won't take too kindly if we lose the Grey Cup down south, I don't think.
The international rivalry is giving the CFL more media exposure in the United States than it's ever had before. Whether that's good for Canadian football is still being debated by its fans. Ian Hannamansing, CBC News, Vancouver.
Canada's unemployment rate rose slightly in October. It's up to 5.7% from 5.5% in September. There were fewer jobs in retail and wholesale trade, as well as in manufacturing. Employment increased in construction, also in the information, culture, and recreation sectors. In all, the economy added 18,000 jobs last month, not enough for the employment rate to rise as the pace of job creation trailed population growth. October marks the 4th increase in the jobless rate over the past 6 months. Inflation and the lingering impact of the pandemic have created a perfect storm for Canadian restaurants, and an industry association commissioned a recent report to gauge the strain and found more than half of its members may be losing money, as the CBC's Philippe de Montigny reports.
The lunch rush at Tutti Matti isn't what it used to be. The downtown Toronto restaurant is now only open 3 days a week for lunch instead of 5.
We used to have people that would come every single day for lunch. Just gonna give you another top up.
The owner says many people continue to work from home most of the week, and inflation is squeezing people's budgets.
I don't go to restaurants. I haven't been in a restaurant, I think, in about 3 years.
Same with takeout. I don't do it as often anymore as I would like to.
OpenTable noticed a drop in online restaurant reservations last month. October bookings were down 1% year over year in Montreal. 2% in Vancouver, 3% in Toronto, and 6% in Edmonton. This expert says hiring qualified workers comes at a cost.
Also, let's not forget that the industry has suffered with the COVID pandemic and resulting from the COVID pandemic with a strong labor gap. It's been difficult to attract chefs and back of the house and front of the house staff. And many restaurants have had to increase wages in order to not only attract people, but also to keep them.
Enjoy, guys.
With the cost of food, wages, and rent all way up, many restaurants have increased their menu prices. But it's a double-edged sword, turning away customers.
Are we profitable? Probably not at the moment.
And Tuti Mati is not alone. 51% of restaurants in the country are now just breaking even or losing money. Compare that to just 12% before the pandemic.
It's very challenging because everything that goes into operating a restaurant has increased double digits.
I'm going to start running this while you finish that porchetta.
But for now, Solomon is rolling up her sleeves and doing odd jobs at her restaurant, from serving clients to washing dishes to help her business stay afloat. Philippe de Montigny, CBC News, Toronto.
It's an entirely different type of farming, taking a small amount of fungus spores and creating a new versatile type of food. Coming up next, we talk and yes, even taste mushroom protein. Stay tuned.
Nice clean kitchens, please. You're doing great work.
Homemade salads, soups, chili, mac and cheese, and pizza. That's what's on the menu for students at Northumberland Regional High School today. But thanks to the student-led volunteer group that runs the program, no one pays a dime.
I used to be pretty hungry at school. You know, sometimes I don't have money, and now I can always get a good, nutritious meal here at Northumberland Regional High School.
The group is called Karma Closet, and they collaborate with the school's culinary skills class to make it all happen. From menu planning to cooking and cleaning, the students do it all. Their teacher, Paul Heighton, oversees the operation.
It's just something they can take with them, whatever they do after high school, whether they start a family, whether they go to university, whether they just get a job. This is something they'll have forever. They can feed themselves and others, and very empowering stuff, yeah.
Dozens of eager students line up for their meal before the lunch bell goes off. It's first come, first serve, but there's usually enough to go around, and that adds up to almost 200 lunches a day.
You get to see all these students walk through this room, and you get to see how many people you're helping, and you get to see them like smile as they take their food.
They enjoy it. They enjoy that they have a free meal, that they enjoy it's all homemade, that it's just made right in our kitchen, and it makes them happy.
What's your favorite part?
The pizza.
The pizza.
Definitely the pizza. Yeah, and the fruit salad and the Caesar salad. The Caesar salad's the best though.
Along with free lunches, the Karma Closet students also give out free breakfast and snacks throughout the day.
Healthy foods, especially breakfast before starting classes, is important because you need food to fuel your brain. If you don't eat something, you're not in the right state of mind.
The entire program is a collaboration. The school's agriculture class even grows fresh greens to contribute to the meals.
I love watching the students achieve this. I like watching them take ownership in it. It shows in all areas of the school. All the different groups that are involved take pride in this program. They're looking out for each other. I think it speaks a lot to that next generation of kids.
The program is partially funded by the province because it's incorporated into class curriculum, but it also relies heavily on community donations. O'Toole hopes that hearing about the program at Northumberland will inspire other schools to follow suit. Selena Alders, CBC News, Alma.
It's taking fungi and creating a new source of food rich in protein. It's a mushroom protein that's a low-cost alternative to meat. We find out why it may be a way to future-proof food and how it came to be.
Maya Farms produces mushroom protein through a process called biomass fermentation, which is the most efficient form of protein production that has ever existed. What we do is take a single teaspoon of mushroom spores and we introduce that into a stainless steel tank that essentially looks like a brewery. We take agricultural byproducts, which are largely considered, waste streams. We take the sugar from that and we feed that to fungi. What we produce is a dried and shelf-stable ingredient that can last 12 months. It can ship anywhere on the planet. You can take this and incorporate this into different sausages, steaks, cutlets, burgers. You can eat it in stir fries. What this is an extremely versatile ingredient that can, at scale, be produced at a lower cost than animal protein. What we want people to see is that this is the center of the dinner plate. This is the main piece, and we don't want people to feel dissatisfied with what they're putting. What we know is that this has the potential to be, incredibly delicious.
We're creating something as neutral as possible, that has that bite, that keeps shape throughout the entire cooking process, that we can provide to people who love to cook.
Maya Farms was founded by a farmer, an engineer, and a neuroscientist. And the three of us came together because, we all have roots in agriculture and a desire to look at the way that we produce food a little bit differently. My brothers are farmers, my father's a farmer, and I look at what they're doing and it inspires me, but I also think there's huge climate risks that they face to be able to continue to produce crops in the same way that they've done for the last 60 years. And if we don't bring some of this food production indoors, we are leaving ourselves at a massive risk, by the middle of this century, where the unpredictability of our climate systems is going to result in reduced crop loss at a global scale.
We find that if we compare beef production versus, this mycelium or mushroom protein production, that there's closer to about a 6 times reduction in carbon dioxide equivalent in using mushroom protein versus beef protein. And this is also the equivalent of using about 40 times less land using our method.
We're laying the groundwork of the science here today with support of, the National Research Council of Canada to build out this framework so that the scientists today, become the farmers of tomorrow.
Darius Madavi joins me at the desk now. Now, Darius, I know you've brought some delicious samples from Maya Farms. This is the mushroom protein that we just learned all about. Now, I haven't tried this at all, but we're obviously going to do it together.
All right, I'll take this one.
I always start by smelling my food.
I don't. I've got the little one, these little pellets, like taco meat, kind of.
Just look like kind of like corn puffs.
Kind of tastes like corn puffs too.
It honestly doesn't have much of a taste to it.
No, it's very neutral. You can do anything with it because
I'm fine with this.
There's nothing, yeah. You want to swap?
You could add this to yogurt and
I wouldn't
kind of
add
like
it
a
to
granola.
Yogurt. I would cook it like meat.
Sorry. Be careful.
It's very dry.
Lodges back into your throat a little bit, but that's okay.
It's okay. You gotta cook it. You wouldn't eat it like this, I think. I guess if you really want protein. Oh, the big ones are better. Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah, it is like a corn puff. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I like it.
I'm going to keep choking here, so
okay.
over
In the meantime, it sounds like you'll need some water. Luckily, there's lots coming. You can see the cloud moving in. Take a look at this time lapse. This is from this morning here in Vancouver. And then if you remember, as we were talking about before, considerable rainfall coming to the coast, as well as some very strong winds. It is quite dry. I would recommend, if you're going to eat the protein, have some sauce with it. Let's take a look now at the weather once again. You can see we talked a bit about the snowfall warning coming to the north because there is considerable snowfall coming. It is very dry. And then over here on the coast, we have a wind warning as well. Let's take a look at that now because the gusts are going to be very extreme. So our sustained wind speeds are close to almost 90 kilometers per hour expected on some parts of the island. This is actually a very colorful map. But for some parts of the North Island and the northern part of the West Coast especially, gusts could exceed 100 kilometers per hour. Now, no wind warning in place for the rest of the island, but the South Island around Victoria and the East Coast also expected to see some very strong winds up to around 50 kilometers per hour, potentially gusting a little bit higher than that. So the thing that's driving this is this low pressure system. You can see it here. It is quite an ominous red, I have to say. This wasn't intentional. It's not supposed to look quite so ominous, but here we go. You can see that system start to roll up the coast, and as it does, you'll notice that the same sort of timing we have here, if we look at our map of precipitation, is the same timing we have of this system starting to roll through, bringing these heavy rains to the island first and foremost, but relatively short-lived. So once we get into tomorrow morning, most of the heaviest rains for most areas should be gone. The North Island will see another sort of wave, another disturbance pass through that should bring another wave of heavy rain later tomorrow, but for the most part, for the lower mainland and the South Island, the east coast of the island, we're looking at the worst of it happening overnight tonight when most people will be asleep. And then tomorrow and into Sunday, we just see mostly scattered showers popping up until our next system rolls through overnight Sunday into Monday. But still, it'll be a wet one. Now, temperatures are starting to come up a little bit, or staying up a little bit as well, even as that system rolls through because that warm Pacific air is coming with it, which is why we have the cloud along with those relatively high temperatures. And here in Vancouver this weekend, once again, it's nothing but wet in the forecast, except for a day of cloud by Wednesday, and even Tuesday is starting to dry up. This is only a chance of showers. Monday is our last day of these really heavy rains. And don't forget to turn your clocks back Saturday night.
I grabbed some water, so I'm good to go now.
I'm doing that next.
Thanks so much, Darius.
Thanks, Janella.
Well, while we do need rain, too much can cause a problem, but is there a way to hold that rain in reserve for drier days? Coming up, how one city is turning parks into sponges. That's next.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. With the changes to how Canada is able to access journalism online and on social media, we want to assure you that when you're looking for CBC News, you'll always be able to find us. Wherever you are in BC, local news, breaking stories, and the latest from around the world is at your fingertips any time of the day with the free CBC News app and online at cbcnews.ca. For news you can trust, download the CBC News app and stay connected wherever you are.
It's a way to future-proof your city. Montreal is experimenting with a new approach to extreme rainfall. Rather than relying completely on drainage, the strategy is to turn parks, in effect, into sponges. Ben Shingler has more on how it works.
Again and again this year, rainfall has flooded streets and homes in Montreal. Because it can be dangerous and because it's likely to happen more often, there's an urgent search for mitigation strategies.
When it rains, part of the water will be canalized here, so it turns into a little river.
This new park in Montreal used to be a rail yard that often flooded. Now it's one of 7 newly created sponge parks.
Instead of draining all the water into the sewer system, we're keeping a part of the water into parks, and this way we're bringing water to nourish the green infrastructures, the trees, the plants.
And Montreal is planning to build 30 more.
Instead of seeing the rain as something bad, we are now keeping the rain and turn it into something beautiful.
The philosophy is totally different from our traditional business as usual model.
The idea was the brainchild of this Chinese architect, inspired by the monsoons of his childhood village. China has embraced the concept on a larger scale.
It's totally opposite to conventional gray infrastructure. Now, this kind of change is difficult. It is a fundamental change. It is a revolutionary change about how we deal with relationship between man and nature.
This climate expert says the stormwater and sewer systems in many Canadian cities are sorely out of date.
What we're discovering is that a lot of the systems that we built decades ago are no longer sufficient.
But can sponge parks be an effective part of the solution?
We don't yet have a really large, robust evidence base on what works where, and what the limits of these types of interventions are for dealing with especially larger scale climate risks.
As those risks increase, the project will be put to the test. Ben Shingler, CBC News, Montreal.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight on CBC News at 6. We leave you now tonight with a live shot of the Diwali festivities at the Evergreen Cultural Centre in Coquitlam. The festival celebrates light and new beginnings. Here we can see a crowd forming at the Cultural Centre. Lots of bright colors and fun times. If you want to keep up to date, of course, you can head to our website or, of course, download our free CBC Gem app. Have a great night.